Hello, minions. So, no song and title card today, and you'll see that I'm in my home office, which is used more for podcasting than for video casting. The reason for that is pretty simple. They are painting my office, and it really smells like paint fumes at the moment. So, you get to see the home office in all of its nerdy glory. So, I want to talk today about something which has come up a lot lately, and that is AIs like GPT Chat 3, the chat GPT-3 chatbot, these kinds of things, and what it means for essentially the writing of the essay, what this means for how we teach essay writing, and so forth and so on. I'm seeing a lot of hype and a lot of panic and a lot of other things. So let me back up a little bit. I've actually been involved with that particular using that particular AI for some time now. If you follow my stuff closely, you have seen some things that were produced by it. Now, you might be saying, oh my gosh, he's writing his academic articles with it. I'm not. Oh my gosh, he's writing his fiction with it. I'm not. And both of those things, you'll see why. But occasionally I'll have to write something that is very formulaic, and I will use it. Very rarely, only very few times, but you can find things that I've used floating around the internet. And of course, what it produces is never quite usable. So I have to take it and then tweak it. And so you take it, you edit it, it's about 90% of the way there, you edit the last 10% to make it human, and then you use it in that way. So I have been using it as a tool. So I speak both as someone who teaches writing to students and someone who has actually used this as a tool. And that gets at what I think it is useful for, is as a tool that writers can use. Now you might ask, why haven't you used it for your academic writing? Why haven't you used it to write your fiction? Well, the reason for that is pretty simple. Because it's a computer, and so it's kind of dumb about those kinds of things. It can write about the level of a kind of barely competent freshman. That's about what it can do. And it doesn't really understand the things that it's doing. It tries to make connections, but it's not super smart. And its ability to sound super smart, its ability to pass the Turing test is, you have to assume that whoever it is kind of dumb. Maybe they just woke up and they're groggy or something, and this is what they wrote. So to write the only way to write a scholarly article using one of these things would be to write something that was so trite that it is not worthy of publication in any way. Fiction, I've actually used it several times for fun to write fiction prompts, and it writes in a very melodramatic kind of way. Think the worst kind of fan fiction that you imagine, and that's essentially what it does for you. So it has its limits as a tool. Well, what does that mean for those of us like me who teach freshman writing? Well, I don't have any hair, and I have a gray beard, white beard at this point, and that is because I've been around long enough to remember the panic that ensued back when you stopped having just spell check, but really pretty good grammar and style check on tools like Microsoft Word. Pretty good. Today you might go like, what? They're not that great. At the time, they seemed like they were pretty good. And the response of many faculty then, many teachers of writing, was to say, oh my gosh, the students are essentially cheating. They haven't learned to spell, they haven't learned to use proper grammar, and they haven't learned to use good style. So what we have to do is we have to make them only write essays in class. I saw there was a sudden revival of the Blue Book, right? They must only write lessons in class. That way we can be sure they're not using these tools. And on this side of it, you can see how that was a very foolish choice. It was an overreaction. So first of all, it's a bad choice because it ignores the purpose of teaching writing. We're not teaching writing in just an abstracted sense. We're teaching writing so that students can write and can write using the tools that are available to them. this is going to be a tool that's available to them. And the truth is, they're not likely, when they start using it, to go to like the OpenAI playground or anything like that. What they're likely to do is start having these tools embedded in word processing programs so that they will do a lot of the production for them. And this is something that we will all use in some way. So we have to, instead of trying to discourage them from using these tools, we have to teach them how to use these tools in a responsible way. Right? What is a responsible and wise way to use these tools? How do you use these tools to create better prose for humans by humans ultimately? Now, there's the other problem that this led to, which is when we first had this kind of spell check, grammar check, and even style check become available. Many marginal students were able to use these things to improve their writing, which is what the tools were for. But what has happened in the couple decades since then? The average student doesn't actually understand what proper spelling is, doesn't actually understand what proper grammar is. And if you say like, oh, poo, you're just saying this, the average score in America on the ACT is 18 this year. 18. They don't know. And by the way, those are students who are potentially college bound. We're not talking high school, right? And so instead what happened is those skills have atrophied. And nowadays, the very same professors, and I mean often the same people, not just the same type, will complain that their students will have terrible grammar and terrible spelling errors. The same ones who said we have to prevent them from using these tools will today complain, why didn't they use the tools that are available to them? They didn't even use them. Or the spell check or grammar check did not indicate to them, they didn't understand it well enough to be able to fix it or to be able to edit it or to be able to make it use what it does. So my counsel as someone who both teaches writing and has used this in a limited way to produce kind of very formulaic text every so often when I need it, my suggestion is this. First, remember that it's a tool and learn to use it yourself. The more I would urge anyone who is teaching writing or anyone who's in a field where you have to ask students to produce writing to play with it around a little bit. And the first thing you write, the first prompt you put in, you will probably freak out and go like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to tell the difference between something a student actually wrote and whether they just put my prompt in there. But soon, after you play with it a couple times, you'll begin to realize, oh, it keeps producing things along the same formula, and they're formulaic, and it's the kind of family feud of writing, the most bland, boring, average kind of thing. And if you're asking them to do something, if you're asking them to do any real synthesis, any real higher thinking at all, the truth is it can't really do a good job with that. As soon as you start to have it, doing real research, integrating that research into it, it's even harder for it to do that in a meaningful way, and really can't. And so soon you'll begin to realize, sure, you will have students who will use these tools blindly, but those students who use these tools blindly will all produce the same 4 essays, and it'll be clear that they haven't done anything real and anything important. But students who use these tools well will be able to use these tools to integrate their actual research, their actual higher thought into their writing. And they will then become better writers if they can learn that. And so the first step, understand it's a tool and familiarize yourself with this tool, because you're going to see this coming into other things. And the second step is we have to begin developing strategies not to prevent students from using these tools, but to teach them to use them well, to teach them to use them in a way so they know how to edit the prose that comes out. They know how to use it in a reasonable way. So, somebody asked me, are you afraid that you're going to lose your job? No, I'm not. Because my prediction is that 20 years from now, when I've long since retired, someone else will be complaining that the students don't know how to properly use the AIs And so why is their writing still so bad? So just a little word from me to you, and I hope that you learn to use this tool well.